As you settle in, maybe in silence, maybe with your eyes already half closed, I invite you to let the day slowly fade away. Night has arrived, serene, steady, wrapped in layers of shadow, as if time had taken off its shoes so as not to make a sound. Here, in this moment when the mind slows down and the body begins to surrender to the softness of rest, I invite you on a very special journey. It's not a journey made of haste or flashing images. It is a calm, quiet journey through the deep sands of history. Tonight, we will listen to what the Earth has to tell us. We will dive into archaeological discoveries that changed what we thought we knew, and that may still be changing. There is no hurry to understand everything now. You only need to be here, present, listening. The rest, time and sleep, will take care of. Take a deep breath. Allow the darkness in the room to turn into a time tunnel. There is something magical in the silence of the buried world. Imagine the objects hidden beneath layers of stone, sand, and clay. Imagine the muffled sound of excavations, the delicate brushes touching fragments as if handling fossilized dreams. Each shard, each bone, each forgotten wall is an interrupted sentence in a grand text that humanity once wrote and then erased. But not entirely, because the Earth remembered. The Earth kept it. And now, century after century, year after year, archaeologists around the world lean down with tenderness and patience to hear these silent voices. Perhaps not in words, but in forms, in materials, in patterns. This is a kind of listening done with the eyes. And tonight you will listen too. You will listen even as you sleep. With your eyes closed, you might picture entire civilizations lying beneath the ground we walk on. Markets once full of life, temples once glowing in sunlight, ships once sailing across oceans, all now quiet, immersed in time. But they haven't truly disappeared, because the past doesn't die. It merely naps, waiting to be found again. And when it awakens through an archaeological discovery, everything we thought we knew can shift. The timeline adjusts, certainties dissolve gently, new narratives emerge. And just like that, slowly and silently, history is rewritten, not with fanfare but through careful excavations like fingers uncovering a memory. Tonight we will wander, unhurried, through discoveries that shook the timeline we thought was fixed. We will speak of peoples who were far more peaceful than once imagined, of artifacts that traveled thousands of kilometers long before writing existed, of craters that formed before life itself, of temples that came before cities. All of it revealed at a gentle pace, like the sound of a breeze moving through stone columns, or the breath of an ancient world sleeping beneath our feet. This won't be a lesson. It won't be a narration. It will be almost a dream of clay, bones, and dust. By now you may feel your body growing lighter. Perhaps your shoulders are relaxing. Maybe the muscles in your face are releasing their tension. This is time dissolving. You don't need to rush, understand, or retain. You can simply listen, with your ears, with your heart, with the calm of someone about to fall asleep, accompanied by millions of years. Because that is exactly what we'll do. We'll travel through time, without moving. We'll dive into the silence of centuries. We'll rest in the arms of the earth while it whispers stories that are only now being heard again. Welcome to the sleeping past. Imagine a desert, a horizon without urgency, where the wind blows as if sweeping not only the sand, but the centuries. There, at the heart of a dry and seemingly lifeless land, rest layers of the past. Beneath every grain, a secret. Beneath every layer, a civilization that once lived, loved, built, worshipped, fought, and disappeared. But not everything was lost. Because at some point in silence, a group of attentive eyes and careful hands knelt before time, armed with brushes and delicate tools, and began to listen. Excavating is exactly that, listening with the body. It is accepting that time speaks slowly. It is turning patience into revelation. And that is what we will talk about now, the hypnotic allure of archaeology. Archaeology is not like the adventures cinema likes to portray. There are no chases, no explosions, no dramatic soundtracks. The real soundtrack is the soft sound of a brush gliding over the earth, the gentle metallic scrape of a scalpel removing with precision the dust from an inscription, the faint clink of fragments returning to the light after thousands of years in darkness. A true archaeologist is, above all, a meditator. They observe the ground, they converse with the soil, and more than anything, they respect the silence. Because what lies there is not merely an object, It is memory. It is a trace of life, a witness from a time when the world was different, but humanity was still human. Sometimes the discovery is a piece of pottery, other times a coin, a pin, a corroded blade. At first glance they seem simple, mere remnants, but through the lens of archaeological listening, they become portals. A hairpin may suggest social status, a blade might reveal rituals. A coin could speak of trade, influence, alliances. These are traces that speak not with words but with context, and the archaeologist is someone who has learned to read that silent language, that alphabet of dust and form. There is something deeply poetic in that language, a kind of poetry that can only be understood when the body is calm, as yours may be now, listening to all of this. Many of the great advances in our historical understanding have not come from texts or records. They came from the earth. They came from objects forgotten for millennia and rediscovered by patient hands. That's why archaeology holds the power to rewrite entire narratives. It does not simply confirm what was once said. It questions. It reveals what was never spoken. It's as if we had been reading only half a book for centuries, and now, page by page, it becomes whole through fragments long buried, in the rhythm of excavation, in the rhythm of natural time, in the rhythm of your breathing now, slow, steady, immersed in night. And there is something even more fascinating. We dig not only to find, but to understand what is missing. Absence speaks too. A site without weapons says as much as one filled with them. A structure with no walls may point to a people without war. And it is in this kind of silence that archaeology blooms. It teaches us that deep knowledge comes from listening and from emptiness. It is in the empty space that meaning takes form. Just as now, in the space between thoughts, between words, your mind may be slowly floating, gently slipping into rest. You can imagine deserts, mountains, forests, and the ocean depths, all these places holding secrets that are, at this very moment, being uncovered by archaeologists around the world. Each discovery, no matter how small, is a reminder that time is never truly lost. It simply becomes sediment, becomes layer, becomes rest. And it is into that rest of time that you now drift naturally, effortlessly. You are following a peaceful excavation, not into the earth, but into the very history of humankind. And what we'll find in the coming chapters are fragments that changed everything we thought we knew, with the same serenity with which night changes the sky. Take a deep breath. Let sleep approach, like fine sand covering your thoughts. Soon we will speak of an ancient civilization, and how it spread not through swords but through words and exchange. The story of the Phoenicians lies just ahead, but for now, all is calm, and all that needs to be done is rest. You may have heard of the Phoenicians before, a seafaring people, ancient, distant, lost in the tides of history. They've often been described as clever merchants, masters of swift ships, crossing the Mediterranean in search of profit, metals, and markets. But that image, though partially true, is only the surface. For a long time, schoolbooks reduced the Phoenicians to trading sailors, and at times even linked them to violent expansion, as if they conquered territory through force. But now, archaeologists are listening to another version, a quieter one, a more serene one, and perhaps a truer one. A version in which Phoenician power did not come from war, but from the gentle touch of cultural exchange. Imagine a Phoenician ship, guided by a soft wind, gliding over calm waters under a pastel sky. There is no rush, only the sound of sails, wood creaking under salt, and the quiet hope for connection. These ships carried not just goods, they carried ideas, alphabets, colors, scents, religions, different peoples meeting not to fight, but to influence one another. The new archaeological perspective on the Phoenicians reveals that their true strength was not military. It was symbolic. It was their capacity to connect, to trade, to spread their customs slowly, while absorbing others in a cycle of mutual communication. Recent research reveals a Phoenician network that spread like underground roots, silent, effective, deep. In archaeological sites in North Africa, Sicily, the Iberian Peninsula, and even present-day Tunisia, Phoenician objects have been found far from any signs of armed occupation. No fortresses, no trenches. What's found are domestic artifacts, common utensils, wine amphorae, perfume bottles, and inscriptions in the Phoenician alphabet, suggesting not invasion, but coexistence. This constant, non-aggressive presence tells a story of gentle influence. Like your breathing right now, present, continuous but effortless. There is something poetic in the idea of a people who spread across the Mediterranean, not by imposing their presence, but by blending with local cultures, teaching their alphabet, and learning new customs. It's as if every port was a blank page, where the Phoenicians would write a line and read one in return. The Phoenician alphabet, for example, spread so widely that it became the foundation for many later writing systems, including our own. And all of this was done without swords, without generals, without empires, only through the persistence of culture, through the beauty of exchange, and through time. Now imagine yourself sitting by an ancient harbor, watching the sun slowly disappear on the horizon. Beside you, Phoenician artisans speak with local fishermen. A child learns new words in a foreign tongue. A piece of amber is traded for a basket of dates. A goddess with an unfamiliar face is welcomed onto a new altar. None of it is war, it is fusion. And this silent fusion, unfolding over centuries, built a civilization that touched many others, without ever dominating them by force. Just as sleep now touches your thoughts, without imposition, without noise, only through slow approach. This new reading of the Phoenicians, as cultural mediators, as seeds planted in different soils, is supported by delicate finds, fragments of pottery bearing hybrid inscriptions, blends of local artistic styles with Phoenician forms, religious rituals interwoven to reflect syncretism and coexistence. All of this uncovered not through towering monuments, but through patient excavations far from the centers of power. It is archaeology giving voice to the discreet. It is history being rewritten with the ink of subtlety. Now, as your eyes may be closing even more, you can imagine the Mediterranean as a book of water, and the Phoenicians as invisible calligraphers, writing on gentle waves, leaving meaning behind wherever they went. They did not leave vast empires like the Romans, but they left something more discreet, more enduring, like the thoughts born in the silence of night, like this feeling of peace you may be experiencing right now. And as time flows slowly forward, soon we will speak of objects that crossed seas, languages, and centuries, objects that still float up in excavations as silent witnesses to a borderless connection. In the next chapter, we will talk about these symbols, amphorae, alphabets, and gestures from the sea. But for now, all remains serene, like the sleep that gently approaches. Imagine an ancient ship made of dark wood gliding gently across the calm sea. Its sails are filled by a steady breeze, and there is no urgency in the vessel's movement. Below deck, carefully arranged, rest dozens of clay amphorae. Some carry olive oil, others wine. Still others contain perfumes, fabrics, or seeds. But within each of them, though invisible, there is something more, a fragment of the culture that created them. The object travels, but it carries with it a people's way of life. And even when the ship breaks apart, even when it sinks, even when time washes everything away, those amphorae remain, motionless, whole, waiting for centuries beneath the seabed until someone finds them again. Today, archaeologists dive into the depths of the Mediterranean as if descending into the unconscious of history. And there, in the quiet darkness of the deep, Phoenician amphorae continue to be discovered. Their shapes are elegant, narrow, perfect for maritime transport. Their symmetrical handles, their sturdy bodies, their pointed bases, each detail serves a function but also expresses beauty. Many of these vessels were found in ships that never reached their destination, silent shipwrecks that never cried for help, yet now tell stories. And what is striking is that these amphorae were not found in conquered cities, but in meeting places, port outposts, regions of mutual influence. And they are not just containers, they are alphabets. Because along with these objects, Phoenician inscriptions emerge like gestures from the past. Small plaques with etched letters, symbols that would later evolve into the foundations of writing systems that shaped entire civilizations. These inscriptions are at once simple and powerful. Each symbol is a wave that has traveled through time, and when archaeologists read them with care and reverence, they are hearing a language that longed to circulate, that longed to be understood. The Phoenician alphabet, with its concise and adaptable structure, was embraced and modified by Greeks, Romans, and many others. And this did not happen through force. It happened through fascination, through exchange, through affinity. Now, Imagine a Phoenician port at dusk. Amphorae are being unloaded. The smells of fresh wine and fragrant oil mingle with the scent of the sea. A local scribe observes the markings on the objects and learns the symbols. A merchant copies the strokes onto wax tablets. A child plays nearby, repeating sounds they've never heard before. And in this way, letter by letter, culture by culture, the world begins to draw closer. This kind of influence is like a tide that rises without making foam. It does not destroy. It reshapes. It molds. And that is why, when archaeologists find these artifacts in distant sites, they do not see mere commerce. They see coexistence. Many of these discoveries were made beneath layers of earth accumulated over millennia, as if time had gently covered everything in blankets of silence, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And that moment arrived only recently, in the past few decades, as scanning technologies, deep-sea diving, and chemical analysis began to identify the exact origins of many fragments. An amphora found in Cadiz, Spain, was traced back to Tyre, in present-day Lebanon. A writing fragment discovered in Malta bears features from 3 different cultures, and all these details show that the Phoenicians were not colonizers. They were connectors. As you breathe slowly and gently, you might picture those amphorae resting in the deep darkness of the sea, patiently awaiting the eyes that would understand them. That is archaeology, a dialogue between past and present, between object and gaze, between what was left behind and what is yet to be discovered. And with that same calm, we continue on our journey. Each artifact is like a whispered word. Each symbol is an invitation to contemplation, and each wave from the sea is a reminder that history is not lost. It has merely been resting, just as you are resting now. In the next chapter, we'll leave human vessels behind for a moment and turn our gaze to something far older. A crater, an impact, a scar upon the planet that predates all human stories. An event that may have given birth to life itself. But until then, let your mind drift among amphorae, alphabets, and the warm waters of a forgotten time. Now we leave behind the ancient ports, the wooden vessels, and the human artifacts slumbering in the deep. We go farther, much farther, not just through space but through time. We're not traveling back thousands of years, but billions, before writing, before cities, before there were even trees or animals. A time when Earth was young, restless, wrapped in heat and silence. In that deep past, an impact occurred, a cosmic touch, a moment of stellar violence that, paradoxically, may have paved the way for life to emerge. That moment isn't recorded in papyrus or parchment, but in stone, in a crater, a circle of geological memory resting in the heart of Australia. Its name, Yarrabubba. Imagine an arid landscape, nearly untouched, in Western Australia. Reddish rocks, endless sky, absolute silence. There lies, almost invisible at first glance, one of the oldest scars on Earth. For millions of years it remained there, camouflaged by time, drawing no attention. But modern analysis revealed something astonishing. Yarrabubba is not just any crater. It is the oldest known impact craters on Earth, formed 2,229,000,000 years ago. It witnessed epochs human eyes will never see, but that we can now glimpse with our minds. The impact that created this crater was colossal. An asteroid, perhaps several kilometers wide, collided with Earth's surface, unleashing an unimaginable burst of energy. Heat, displaced matter, atmospheric upheaval, all in an instant. But unlike what we might assume, this event wasn't solely destructive. It may have been a trigger, a cosmic spark, because scientists discovered that the Yarrabubba impact coincides with the end of a global ice age, a time when Earth was entirely cloaked in ice. And the heat from that collision may have melted vast sections of this frozen shell, releasing water vapor and helping shift Earth's climate, preparing the stage for life as we know it. Think of it as a kind of cosmic light switch, a point of warmth on a frozen planet, a geological event that may have influenced biological processes. When scientists studied minerals in the region, they found clear evidence that the impact deeply altered the local substrate, recrystallizing elements, rearranging rock structures, leaving behind thermal signatures. It's as if Earth received a touch from the sky, a violent gesture yet fertile, a collision that created the conditions for us to study it billions of years later. And now, as you breathe in deeply and slowly, you might begin to feel that vastness of time, that rhythm far older than any calendar. The discovery of Yarabubba was only possible thanks to recent advances in zircon crystal dating, microscopic elements that resist the passage of time with stunning resilience. These crystals, when analyzed, act like natural clocks. They carry within them the signatures of the moment they were formed. And through these tiny guardians of time, geologists concluded that Yarabubba predates all other known craters, including the famous Chicxulub in Mexico, which caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. While Chicxulub is 66 million years old, Yarabubba exceeds 2 billion, a difference that echoes like the sound of a distant star, traveling through eons before being heard. And it's fascinating to think, where now there is only stone and red dust, there was once celestial fire. Where silence reigns in the desert today, there was a blast that shook the sky and Earth's deepest layers. But now everything is at rest. The crater does not cry out, it simply exists, like an ancient eye sleeping beneath the soil, keeping a secret. And perhaps that is the deepest beauty of cosmic archaeology, to find in a rock the whisper of an unimaginable past. Now that you know this, you can rest with a lighter thought. Life on Earth, in part, may have been possible because a rock from space came crashing down, because chaos visited the planet and left room for order. The story of life sometimes begins with the unexpected, and the traces of it lie in quiet craters like Yarabubba, just like you now, resting too. In the next chapter, we'll follow this cosmic thread and understand more clearly how the sky shaped the Earth, how stars and impacts sculpted not only the crust, but the very possibility of dreaming. For now, all remains calm. Keep breathing slowly. Sleep and history walk side by side, and both know exactly where they are going. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a sky without stars, a firmament where time has no measure, where there is no moon, no sea, no life, a silent void, interrupted by glowing spheres drifting freely, dancing slowly through the deep reaches of space. It is within this setting that Earth's story begins. Before the planet had a name, before mountains existed, before there was night or day, there was only cosmic dust and collisions. The dance of the primordial bodies was a choreography of violent yet creative encounters, for every impact shaped a world, and one of them, in a moment suspended in eternity, gave birth to a blue planet, ours. Earth was born of chaos, of heat, of the crashing of celestial bodies that merged, melted, and fused into one. At first, it was just an incandescent sphere, a furnace spinning in the dark. But slowly, very slowly, the heat began to fade. A crust began to form, and the dance of the cosmos, far from ending, continued, because the sky had not finished touching the Earth. New impacts followed, larger, deeper, each bringing not just destruction, but transformation. Fragments of ice, iron, nickel, and carbon. Ingredients from the cosmos that, upon collision with the young Earth, delivered essential elements for life. Have you ever imagined that your body might contain atoms that once came from a dying star? That the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your lungs, all were forged in stellar furnaces billions of years ago? This is not a metaphor. It is science, and it is also poetry. Because we are quite literally made of the same material as the meteors that fell upon Earth in its youth. We are in essence stardust, rearranged into human form. And when we think about ancient craters like Yarabubba, we see the mark of that bond between the sky and the Earth, a signature left by a celestial visit. During what is known as the Hadean period, which lasted until around 4 billion years ago, Earth was bombarded constantly by meteorites, and many of them brought water. Yes, water. Tiny frozen fragments from comets and asteroids collided with the forming crust, releasing vapor, which accumulated and condensed, forming clouds, rain, oceans. It's strange to think that the vastness of the sea may have begun with small gifts from space. But this is one of the most widely accepted scientific theories. Earth's water may be a kiss from the stars. And it was that water, combined with geothermal heat and the minerals delivered by impacts, that created the first favorable conditions for life. In shallow pools, in volcanic fissures, in inhospitable environments, molecules gathered, bonded, multiplied, all of it in silence, with no witnesses, no hurry, and for a long, long time, until one day the invisible became visible, and life appeared. Archaeology does not study only human ruins. There is an entire field dedicated to understanding the geological fossils of the planet, traces left by eras that came before complex life, layers of rock that preserve records of cosmic impacts, ores reshaped by the heat of asteroids, crystals formed under unimaginable pressure. And by reading these layers, scientists discover that the sky has always been part of Earth's story. From the very beginning, Earth has been molded by touches from afar. Now perhaps you're starting to feel lighter, as if your body were drifting alongside these images. That's natural, because when we dive into deep time, everything that once felt urgent fades away. The mind grows still. The rhythm slows. You don't need to understand every detail. You only need to feel that you are part of a much greater story. A story that began before everything, and that continues even now, in your slow, steady breath. Soon we'll speak of another language from the past. Not one made of letters, but of symbols, ancestral marks carved in stone before the rise of formal writing. They whisper thoughts from a time when humans began to record what they felt, not with words, but with shapes. But until then, you may rest with the thought that the sky has always touched the earth, and perhaps, on this calm night, it is gently touching you too. Imagine being inside a deep cave. The air is cold and damp. The darkness feels absolute, but your eyes begin to adjust. In front of you, on a rocky wall, there are marks, lines, spirals, negative handprints, animals in motion, human forms dancing, hunting, gesturing. No written words, no letters as we know them. And yet, there is language here. There is intent. There is communication. A moment before the alphabet, before formal writing. A moment when humans began to speak with time through symbols. And those symbols still whisper. They murmur beneath the surface of history. And tonight, we will listen. Long before the first civilizations invented phonetic writing systems like Sumerian cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs, humans were already leaving visual records of their thoughts. These rock carvings found on every continent prove that the need to communicate transcends words. It is born from the impulse to remember, to record, to say, I was here. Some of these markings are more than 40,000 years old. They were made with natural pigments, charcoal, animal blood, clay, and they survived everything. They withstood ice ages, cave-ins, centuries of silence. They are still there, waiting to be seen again. Modern archaeology treats these images as documents, silent documents but full of intention, because what we discover when we study them is not just art, it is behavior, spirituality, a worldview. In caves like Lascaux and Chauvet in France, drawings of bison, horses and big cats appear in patterns. Some show impressive detail, shading, perspective, movement. These are expressions of a symbolic mind, of a human being who already perceived the world with depth, and by reproducing what they saw or dreamed, they were not merely copying, they were performing ritual. But not all ancient communication is found inside caves. Many symbols were carved on flat stones, megalithic monuments, animal bones. In regions such as South Africa, Eastern Europe, India and South America, archaeologists have found recurring geometric patterns, suggesting the existence of a shared visual language, perhaps not writing in the modern sense, but something close, a code, a system, something designed to be read. And the most beautiful part is that even if we can't translate these symbols with precision, we still understand them. We feel the intent, the emotion, the gesture, and that's what connects generations separated by millennia. Picture, just for a moment, the hand of an ancient human touching a cold rock. They have no paper, no pen, but they have time, and they have silence. They begin to scratch the stone with a sharp bone, 1 mark, 2, 3. Maybe they are counting, maybe mimicking the river's flow, maybe simply saying, I exist. And now, thousands of years later, you look at that same mark and feel something. That is symbolic archaeology, a dialogue that crosses the ages and can only be heard in stillness. Recent studies show that many of these symbols repeat across continents, suggesting that the human mind, even isolated by geography, creates similar forms. This reveals that the urge to communicate is universal. It is ancient, and it is beautiful to think that even before we knew how to write our names, we already knew how to leave traces of our presence. like footprints in drying mud. That time does not erase. Now perhaps your thoughts are lighter, your breathing slower. Because when we connect with the oldest human gesture, the act of drawing something into the world, we also reconnect with our essence, with the simplicity of being, with the silence that speaks. And maybe that is the best way to rest, by feeling part of a chain of messages that never stopped being written. In the next chapter, we'll continue this path, but leap forward in time. We'll visit an ancient structure that astonished the modern world by defying all known timelines, a temple older than cities, a place where the sacred came before the social, a place called Göbekli Tepe, Tao. But until then, you may rest among the symbols carved in stone, shapes that float between dream and memory. There are places that seem to belong to another dimension, not only because of their age or grandeur, but because of how they challenge everything we think we know. One of those places rests silently in the hills of southeastern Turkey. Beneath an unhurried sky, wrapped in warm breezes and vast horizons, lies an archaeological site that shouldn't exist, and yet it does. Its name is Göbekli Tepe, and it is perhaps the oldest temple ever discovered on Earth. So ancient it predates agriculture, cities, writing, even bronze. So ancient that its existence completely reshapes the order of things. And tonight, we will visit this place, gently, as if walking through the columns of a dream. Discovered in the 1990s, Göbekli Tepe appeared at first to be just another hill, a swelling in the earth like so many others. But beneath the surface lay monumental structures, stone circles carefully constructed, T-shaped columns towering up to 5 meters high, weighing several tons. And on them, intricately carved figures of animals, abstract symbols, human hands, all of it created by a society that had not yet planted crops, that didn't live in permanent villages, that survived by hunting and gathering. And yet, they built temples, not houses, not walls, but places for the sacred. This inversion shocked the academic world. For a long time it was believed that agricultural development enabled organized religion, that first came farming, then settlements, then rituals, but Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite. Perhaps humans first gathered to worship, to dance, to sacrifice, to pray, and only later, drawn by the need to remain close to these sacred sites, did they begin experimenting with farming. It's a theory that transforms the very notion of progress, because it places the spiritual before the practical, the myth before the harvest, faith before economy. The excavations reveal layer upon layer of construction. Each generation buried their circles and built new ones on top, as if memory was too sacred to let go. And most remarkable of all, there are no signs of habitation, no hearths, no domestic tools, no burials. Göbekli Tepe was pure ritual, a space created exclusively for communion with the invisible. And that tells us something about who we were, and maybe still are. Now imagine yourself walking among those millennia-old columns. The ground is stone, the wind whispers through the gaps. The carved figures, a scorpion, a serpent, a boar, seem to watch you in silence. Night falls gently, and the moonlight caresses the reliefs with tenderness. You're in a place where time feels suspended, where the ground still echoes with ancestral footsteps, where every stone is a petrified prayer. And as you breathe slowly and deeply, you may feel that even 12,000 years ago, someone looked up at the sky with the same questions and the same longing for meaning. Studies show that these columns weren't merely placed, they were precisely carved, transported from afar, raised through collective effort, and all of it by people who didn't yet know the wheel. The construction of Göbekli Tepe required cooperation, organization, symbolic language, and spiritual drive. An entire society moved by something unseen but deeply felt, and that feeling reaches across millennia. The mystery of why. What drove such ancient humans to create such sophisticated monuments? Perhaps we'll never know. But maybe we don't need to, because what we feel when standing before these stones is answer enough. At the end of each excavation, archaeologists gently cover the structures once more, as if the temple, once revealed, must return to sleep. Göbekli Tepe is like that, a place that awakens for a moment, then slips back into slumber, a place made to be dreamed, just like you now, perhaps floating between the present and that ancestral past. among columns, symbols, and the sacred silence of the earth. In the next chapter, we will follow the path of cold, where history has been preserved not in stone, but in ice, a frozen time capsule, where objects, bodies, and secrets have rested for millennia, waiting for the thaw. But for now, all you need to do is keep breathing, because the night, like history, is only just beginning. Imagine a white field, vast and endless, where the wind blows patiently and the only sound is the soft crackle of cold. Snow covers the ground like a silent veil, and beneath it, meters and meters below, rest objects, fabrics, weapons, bodies, all of them wrapped in ice, sleeping for thousands of years. Here, time is not an enemy. It is a guardian. Cold preserves what heat would have erased. And that is how ice archaeology became one of the most delicate and awe-inspiring ways of listening to the past. Tonight, we will walk slowly through these frozen landscapes, where every discovery carries a breath of eternity. When we think of archaeology, we usually picture deserts, stones, heat. But in recent years, ice has revealed treasures that could never have been found elsewhere. As glaciers recede, a tragic process driven by global warming, they return forgotten objects to the world. Flint blades, arrows, leather garments, even ropes, shoes, and food, all incredibly preserved. Ice works like a crystalline tomb where time does not flow, where decay pauses, where history breathes slowly, just like you, right now. One of the most famous cases is that of Ötzi, the Iceman. Discovered in the Alps between Italy and Austria in 1991, he had been lying in a glacier for over 5,000 years. His body, his clothing, his belongings, all intact. Ötzi carried a pouch of tools, a stone dagger, a copper axe, dried fruits. He wore hand-stitched furs, shoes lined with dry grass. His body bore tattoos, battle wounds, and even food remains inside his stomach. He was not just a mummy, he was a complete human, paused in time, returned to the world like a distant whisper. But Ötzi is not alone. Archaeologists have found remains in the glaciers of Norway, Switzerland, Canada, and Siberia. Forgotten items left behind by prehistoric hunters. Millennia-old wooden skis, tool handles, traces of campsites, even sled dogs and fishing nets. What all these finds have in common is the emotion they carry. Fragments of daily life. Not great temples, not palaces, but the ordinary, as if the ice chose to preserve simplicity. And it's that simplicity that touches us, because it reminds us that the past isn't made only of glory, it's made of people who lived, worked, and endured, just like us. Now imagine an archaeologist climbing a glacier in silence. Each step is careful. Each layer of snow is removed with respect. When a sliver of leather appears, or time-darkened wood emerges, the silence deepens. There are no cries, only reverence. Because what surfaces is not just an object, it's a reunion, something that waited thousands of years to be seen again. And perhaps, on this quiet night, you too are reconnecting with memories, yours or others. Because listening to the past is, in a way, remembering things we never lived, but that were always part of us. Some of these discoveries have pushed science to its limits. In certain cases, DNA was extracted from frozen fabrics, allowing scientists to reconstruct family trees of extinct peoples. In others, the clothing revealed sewing techniques so refined they had been lost to time. And in parts of Siberia, entire mammoth bodies have been found, with moss still in their stomachs. Ice is a perfect capsule. It doesn't alter, it preserves, and in doing so it gives us back not just what was, but what we still have to learn. Now, your thoughts may be as still as that snowy field, your breath as gentle as the wind passing through frozen peaks, because this kind of story does not impose itself. It reveals itself, slowly, like the tip of a spear emerging from the snow, like the memory of an ancient gesture, like the feeling that time is not a line, but a spiral. And right now we are at its center. In the next chapter, we will leave the ice and enter the jungle, a place where trees hide ruins, where leaves hush entire cities, where archaeology depends on technology to see the unseen. But for now, the cold still surrounds us gently, and all you need to do is keep floating between yesterday and now. Imagine a forest, dense, humid, alive, the constant hum of insects, the whisper of wind among the treetops. the muffled songs of distant birds. Beneath your feet, the ground is soft, blanketed with leaves, tangled roots, fallen branches. It's a world where everything seems to move, except what lies underneath. Because beneath this living forest, motionless structures rest, sleeping ruins, pyramids, roads, plazas, canals, entire cities swallowed by nature and forgotten by time. For a long time it was believed the jungle hid only tribal trails and scattered settlements, but the trees, in their patient silence, held a far greater secret. A secret archaeology could only unveil with light. Invisible light, light from the sky, known as LiDAR, aerial mapping technology that uses laser pulses to pierce vegetation and create three-dimensional images of the ground below. It's as if human eyes were gifted a new sense, and what archaeologists saw with this newfound vision changed everything. Cities with thousands of hidden buildings beneath the green, giant pyramids, road networks connecting regions for dozens of kilometers, reservoirs, aqueducts, agricultural terraces, urban complexity on par with the greatest civilizations in history, and yet, until recently, it was entirely concealed. In Guatemala, for example, LiDAR revealed a Mayan city with over 60,000 structures, all invisible to the naked eye. Trees had grown atop temples, vines draped over rooftops, roots pierced through corridors and stairways. The forest, unhurried, had reclaimed everything for itself, and in doing so, paradoxically, it had preserved it. Because abandonment protects, forgetting conserves, and when the right time comes, the discoveries rise like dreams that have just awoken, gentle, intact, waiting only for attentive eyes. It's almost magical to think that under every step along a forest trail there might be an ancient wall, that behind an ordinary tree rests a forgotten column, that the birdsong might be echoing through stones that once heard rituals, songs, laughter, perhaps even farewells. LiDAR didn't just reveal structures, it revealed the need to rethink everything once believed about the population density of pre-Columbian America. The Maya, for instance, did not live in scattered villages. They organized megacities with complex infrastructure, political hierarchies, and urban planning. And that revelation redraws the map of history. But the most beautiful part is how these discoveries arrived. Not with fanfare, but in silence, like the jungle, like sleep. An aerial archaeology that looks downward with care, that floats over memory, that understands time doesn't erase, it hides. And that the leaves are not barriers, they are blankets, green coverings that keep humanity's traces warm until we're ready to find them again. Now, perhaps your body feels as light as a breeze among the trees. Perhaps you can hear in your mind the sound of dry leaves being brushed aside by curious hands. Each archaeological discovery is exactly that, a gesture of moving leaves, of making room for what lies beneath, for what has always been there, just waiting to be seen. Soon we will trade green for the color of bone. We'll dive into discoveries made through ancient skeletons, bones that speak, bones that tell stories of migration, of mixing, of lives from the past that still flow through our veins. But for now, breathe deeply. Feel the comfort of being surrounded by tree and by mysteries, because the world is still full of sleeping cities, and perhaps of parts of ourselves still waiting to be rediscovered. Imagine a silent plain where the wind caresses the golden grass with the same rhythm it has followed for thousands of years. The soil here is fertile, but it holds more than roots. In certain regions of the world, archaeologists kneel before the earth and, with the tenderness of someone waking something ancient, begin to excavate, and from deep within the ground, bones begin to emerge, fragile, sometimes incomplete, yet somehow alive in memory. Bones that tell stories, bones that carry codes, because within them, within the microscopic matter that was once flesh, rests an invisible library, ancient DNA, a biological alphabet that science has learned to read, and which is now rewriting everything we thought we knew about our ancestors. For centuries we believed we understood human migration routes through shards of pottery, tools, and buildings. But the DNA extracted from ancient remains has begun telling us different stories. Stories not carved into stone or painted on cave walls. Stories written in blood, in bone, in cells. Through advanced techniques in genetic extraction, Scientists have managed to retrieve DNA sequences from skeletons tens of thousands of years old, and what they reveal is extraordinary. You might picture Homo sapiens walking alone through savannas, forests, and deserts, but today we know he was not alone. There were others. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other human relatives still under study. And now, thanks to DNA, we know we didn't simply replace them, we absorbed them. Neanderthal genes exist in nearly all modern humans, affecting immune systems, metabolism, even certain cognitive traits. That means you carry within your body fragments of stories far older than you ever imagined. Now imagine a skeleton resting beneath the soil, silent for 40,000 years. One day it is uncovered. A tooth, a shard of bone, a fossilized hair, any small part is enough. Genetic material is carefully extracted, shielded from contamination, analyzed in climate-controlled labs, inside transparent tubes. Slowly, a map begins to emerge, a trace, a link, and that link binds the past to the present, as if someone who lived during the age of glaciers were whispering, "I am part of you." Discoveries in ancient DNA have reshaped migration maps, revealed forgotten encounters, and redrawn ancestral narratives. Peoples once thought isolated turned out to be hybrids. Regions once considered peripheral became genetic epicenters, and more than anything else, the old myths of pure peoples, noble bloodlines, and single origins have dissolved under the undeniable truth of biology. We are mixed. We always have been. Diversity is the rule. Purity is the illusion. What's even more remarkable is how DNA speaks to other fields. When a skeleton reveals a unique genetic marker, archaeologists return to the site. They re-examine artifacts. They notice patterns once invisible. Linguists detect phonetic links. Climatologists cross-reference fossilized pollen. It becomes a multidisciplinary conversation that begins with a single bone and ends in a broader vision of who we are. Now, perhaps your thoughts are floating gently, as if drifting along microscopic channels of memory. It's fascinating to realize that even sleep, this deep state of nightly rest, is linked to ancestral genetic codes. The way we dream, heal, and find peace at night has ancient roots. Sleep, after all, is an inherited behavior, just like fear, laughter, longing. And as you drift further into this peaceful rest, know this: genetic archaeology is just beginning. There are millions of skeletons, kept in museums, in vaults, in untouched lands, waiting to be heard. And they all carry voices, not voices we can hear, but voices we can read. And when we read those voices, the world quietly changes, just as it is changing now through the course of this night. In our next chapter, we will leave bones behind and turn to the walls, but not just any walls, caves with perfect acoustics, where sound mattered as much as image, where echoes were part of the ritual, where listening was sacred. But for now, allow silence to settle within, because your body too carries a story. And tonight, you're listening to every page of it. Close your eyes, if they aren't already closed, and listen. Not in a hurry, not looking for words, just listen. Hear the sound that doesn't come from outside but from within, the echo of your breath, the slow rhythm of your heart, the stillness between one thought and the next. Now, imagine yourself inside a deep cave. You walk slowly. The ground is damp. The walls are smooth in some places, rough in others. With your body, you begin to sense that something changes as you move. The sound, it echoes differently. It amplifies. It returns. In some places it vibrates, in others it vanishes. Sound in this cave is not just consequence, it is part of the place. It has purpose, it has meaning. Because before writing, before carved stone, there was sound. And today, archaeology has also begun to listen. This field of study is called archaeoacoustics, a new, almost poetic discipline that seeks to understand how ancient civilizations used sound in their sacred spaces. It's not just about what was said, but where it was said, and how the space responded. Many caves with rock art, when acoustically studied, reveal that the most significant paintings appear exactly where the echo is strongest, where the voice vibrates, where a chant reverberates as if reaching into another dimension. Imagine a Paleolithic man beating a primitive drum in an underground gallery. The sound echoes in every direction. A woman sings a ritual song. Children clap, and the snapping of their hands multiplies in the air. There is no light, only sound. And perhaps for those groups, that was enough. Sound as a symbol, sound as a guide, sound as a bridge between the visible and the invisible. In many sites, images of hunted animals, dancing humans and hybrid beings, part man, part spirit, appear exactly where the sound is richest. Studies carried out in caves like Chauvet, Altamira, and Unyo show that these ancient peoples intuitively understood the acoustic properties of their spaces. They knew which walls amplified the voice, which muffled it. They found the exact point where striking a stone made a sound like thunder, and perhaps these qualities were used to provoke awe, to stir reverence, to make the sacred feel present. In an age without stone temples or cathedrals, the cave was the body of the earth, and the echo, its voice. Archaeoacoustics goes beyond caves. In megalithic structures like Stonehenge, researchers have identified sound patterns shaped by the stones themselves. The sound of footsteps, the rhythm of speech, the pulse of drums, all came alive within those circles, as if sacred space was only complete when it vibrated with human presence. Even pyramids, ziggurats, and ancient amphitheaters seem to have been built with acoustic sensitivity, not for technical amplification as we do today, but to create a sensory experience, an atmosphere where sound and silence alternated like sacred gestures. Think now of yourself, lying down or resting, listening to these words. Notice how the sound fills the space around you, even without music, even without noise. There is vibration, there is presence. The past was made of this too, sonic absences, voices that have been lost, but also echoes that remain, sounds that time could not erase. Archaeoacoustics reminds us that history is not only in the image, but also in what was heard, and even the invisible can be heard. Now, as your body drifts deeper into rest, know that more stories are on their way. Stories that do not emerge from sound, but from water. Sunken cities, ruins beneath the waves, lost civilizations that rest beneath the sea like forgotten dreams. In the next chapter we will sail through them, but for now all is silence, and even silence tells. Keep listening, keep resting. The night still sings. Imagine a calm sea. The surface undulates gently as if breathing. Sunlight dances in shimmering reflections on the water, and the horizon melts into a misty haze. But what your eyes cannot see, what rests beneath the waves, is even more serene. There, wrapped in salty silence, lie entire cities, submerged walls, stairways covered in coral, fallen statues resting on the seafloor. In many corners of the planet, structures once built by human hands now sleep underwater, guarding secrets from eras when sea levels were different, or when the ocean didn't yet exist there. These are sunken cities, like ancient dreams drowned, and tonight we'll drift gently among them. Over time, the ocean has not only claimed shipwrecks, it has swallowed entire civilizations. Natural processes like glacial melt, earthquakes, tectonic shifts, and tsunamis have redrawn Earth's coastlines. Regions once home to thousands of people now belong to the domain of the tides. Underwater archaeology is therefore a delicate journey. Divers uncover centimeter by centimeter, walls cloaked in algae, columns surrounded by schools of fish, stone roads that lead nowhere, except to contemplation. In India, off the coast of Dwarka, lie the remains of a city that some traditions associate with Krishna himself. Its foundations rest beneath meters of water, with geometric patterns and alignments suggesting urban planning. In Japan, off Yonaguni Island, a mysterious structure of giant steps, sharp angles, and flat surfaces continues to spark debate. Is it a natural formation, or a human-made monument from forgotten times? In Greece, near the coast of Pavlopetri, divers have uncovered a city complete with streets, tombs, and residential buildings, over 5,000 years old, preserved as if time itself had simply paused. There's something profoundly poetic in imagining an entire civilization that now breathes only underwater, as if the past, for some unknown reason, chose to rest there, rocked by the currents, blanketed in sediment, and yet not lost, because the sea guards with care. Salinity, pressure, and the absence of oxygen at certain depths prevent complete decay. Pottery, amphorae, coins, even documents and fabric have been recovered intact from aquatic environments. Water, often a symbol of forgetting, becomes paradoxically a vault of memory. Marine archaeology requires a different kind of listening. Artifacts aren't retrieved in haste. Sites are documented in silence. Each air bubble rising to the surface carries a trace of time, and divers, floating among ruins, often describe a singular feeling, that of walking through a world no longer present, but never truly gone, a realm between the real and the imagined, between the noise of the waves and the silence of stone. Now perhaps you too are diving, not into water, but into thought, drifting between muffled sounds, vague images, sensations without names. Sleep is, in its way, a descent. And history is the bottom of that ocean. The deeper you go, the more peaceful everything becomes. Sunken cities remind us that what seems lost might only be somewhere else, waiting, preserved, alive. In our next chapter, we'll rise to the surface and look skyward once more, but not in search of constellations. This time we'll be looking for stones, because some ancient cultures viewed meteorites falling from the heavens as divine messages and transformed these cosmic fragments into sacred relics. We'll speak of the dust of stars that fell to earth and became part of temples, tombs, and legends. But for now, remain submerged, where everything is slow and where every ruin becomes rest. Look up at the sky, even with your eyes closed. Imagine an ancient night, long before electricity, before the noise of cities, before the rush of clocks. The sky was an open field of mystery. The stars, millions of lit eyes. The planets, gods in motion. And every so often, a streak of light would cut through that dark veil. A shooting star, a meteor, a visitor from the unknown. For ancient peoples, these fragments of the firmament were not just rocks. They were messages, signs, the will of the divine, materializing in sparks of light. And when these objects fell as heavy, dark, smoldering, they were never touched like ordinary stones. They were revered, protected, transformed into sacred sites. And tonight, we will walk gently through that story, where the sky became stone. Meteorites are fragments of asteroids or comets that pass through Earth's atmosphere and reach the ground. Most of them disintegrate in the air, burning in a brief explosion of light, but some survive the journey. And when they touch the Earth, they inspire awe. They feel different to the touch, denser, colder, metallic, often composed of rare elements like nickel and pure iron, materials that for millennia could not be forged on Earth. For ancient civilizations, finding one of these fragments was like touching the cosmos itself, and that experience left its mark in tombs, temples, ritual objects. A celestial archaeology, stardust transformed into faith. In ancient Egypt, for example, archaeologists discovered beads in necklaces made of meteoritic iron, millennia before the invention of iron smelting. These jewels were so rare, they were believed to hold magical properties. In royal tombs, celestial iron was reserved for the most powerful, as if only the chosen could wear fragments of the universe. The Egyptians called this material iron from the sky, and believed it to be a gift from the gods, a piece of the heavens, fallen to mark destinies. In Greece, at Delphi, it is said that a meteorite was placed at the heart of the sanctuary of Apollo, symbolizing the navel of the world, the place where sky and earth touched. In many Native American traditions, meteorites were buried in sacred circles aligned with astronomical positions. And in Tibet, a remote monastery guards a statue of Buddha, partially made from metal that fell from space. In all these cases, the pattern repeats. The rock is not seen as an object, but as a presence. Through archaeology, studying these artifacts reveals not only the extraterrestrial origin of the materials, but also the symbolic impact they caused. When a fragment of meteoritic iron is found in a tomb, it tells more than the path of a celestial body. It reveals that, to those people, the sky was close, that stars could fall, that the universe could speak, and that human beings, in their fragility, were capable of listening. Now imagine yourself walking slowly through an open field where a meteorite fell thousands of years ago. You reach out and touch the cool surface of the dark stone. It is rough, yet firm, and for a moment, you feel something pulsing within it, a subtle vibration. an echo of when space met Earth. Just like now, in this moment of stillness, you feel something inside you resting as well. The body meets the ground. The mind quiets. Sleep arrives like a celestial stone, silent but full of meaning. Soon we'll arrive at the end of this journey, but there is one last stop, one final archaeological whisper. We will return to the Earth, to its deepest layers. A final invitation to reflect on all that lies beneath our feet, on the history that rests and with which we rest. In our final chapter, we will make that crossing. But for now, keep floating between the stars, between the sky and memory, between dust and dream. We've reached the end of the journey, but there is no true end to history. It continues in every grain of dust, in every breath of wind, in every stone resting where someone once lived. Now, with your body lighter, your mind calm, and the sound around you dissolved into silence, I invite you to close this passage as if returning from a dream, but without waking, because sleeping with history is, in truth, awakening a different kind of awareness, one that does not rush, one that needs no answers, one that understands time as a deep tide, and Earth as a book that writes itself. Beneath your feet, even now, there are layers of centuries, layers of bones, shattered tiles, forgotten seeds, fossilized footprints. Each of these layers tells a story that may never be unearthed, but it exists. And even the stories that go unexcavated are alive, because time does not require remembrance to keep flowing. It simply moves on. Just like your breath now, calm and steady, continues without your command. Sleeping, like excavating, is an act of surrender. You release control. You allow yourself to fall, gently, into the hands of the invisible, and that invisible is ancient as the first sound echoing through a cave, as ancient as the rock that fell from the sky, as ancient as the imprint of a hand left on a stone wall 40,000 years ago. When you sleep beside history, you are not merely resting. You are connecting with everything that came before, with everything that once was and in part still is. Your body, your mind, your existence are continuation. You are the next chapter in something that didn't begin with you, and that also doesn't end. In this moment you may feel the weight of the day dissolving, as if each discovery we've wandered through tonight, the Phoenician amphorae, the meteor impacts, Ötzi's tattoos, the columns of Göbekli Tepe, the cave echoes, the bones that speak, all of them now melt into fine dust, settling gently upon your thoughts. Nothing needs to be remembered now. Nothing needs to be understood. Everything is stored in the same earth that holds the past, in the same sleep that holds the mind, in the same silence that cradles eternity. Archaeology teaches us to listen slowly, to wait, to observe what doesn't shout, to respect time, and sleep does the same. It arrives without asking. It invites, enchants, soothes, and when the mind is open, it fills. That is why this night was not made to conclude, but to rest. You have journeyed through billions of years. You walked among craters, sailed through sunken cities, touched stones fallen from the sky. And now, you rest, like a sacred relic inside a site still being excavated. Tomorrow, when you wake, you may not remember every detail, but it will all be there, in you, like the memory the earth keeps, like the layers of time that don't vanish. They just become fertile soil, because sleeping with history is planting seeds in the invisible. It is trusting that time takes care, that the earth takes care, and that deep down we are all lying in the same story. Now, there is nothing else to do. Just be. Just breathe. Let your body dissolve into the dark. Let the sound slip away, and let sleep arrive completely. Good night, and may you rest with the lightness of an object buried for millennia, discovered only when it is ready to be seen.